And Amazon is now selling 60%, 6 out of 10 of all books sold in the US, and probably close to 75 or 80% of all eBooks.
Today I'm sitting down with Andy Hunter, the founder and CEO of bookshop.org. Now, this is the quintessential David versus Goliath story where Andy and his team have built an e-commerce website focused on supporting independent bookstores. They're taking on, yes, you got it, Amazon.
And if you can't beat Amazon on price and speed, you're doomed. The choices we make as consumers are shaping the world that we live in.
This is an extremely interesting episode where I walk through the mechanics of a very unique business model that Andy has created, and it's working.
We're educating the population on the importance of small bookstores and how much good they do for our society and culture and the communities.
I hope you enjoy the conversation, and remember to go direct. All right. We are live. How are we doing today, Andy?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Well, listen, I'm just going to start with this because whenever I see this statement or line, it's like we have to talk, which is we're building a model for small businesses and independent bookstores to compete with Amazon. That is probably the quintessential David versus Goliath story. So I'm super excited to dive into it. So I just have a couple stats and I'm going to throw it over to you. We'll get started. All right. So this is probably not a surprise to most people, but I'm going to read them off here. 1 out of every 2 books approximately are sold on Amazon. This is in the US. In the US, they've cornered the ebook market. Some estimates show that over 70% of all ebook sales in the US are done on Amazon. And, you know, it's a pretty time-tested thing that consumers typically consume based upon convenience, pricing, and choice. And obviously Amazon is pretty strong at all of those things. And so I want to start here, Andy. There was a quote that I saw that you said, Amazon's dominance there's a silver lining to all of this, and it's forcing independent bookstores to evolve. And this competition will really force the indie bookstores ecosystem to change. So can you just break that down a little bit for me of why you see a silver lining there?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say that everything that you just said is exactly what all the investors said to me when I tried to pitch them this idea. And they said, no. They said, the American consumer only cares about price and speed. And if you can't beat Amazon on price and speed, you're doomed. I think the numbers that you quoted are actually a little bit old, and Amazon is now selling 60%, 6 out of 10 of all books sold in the US, and probably close to 75 or 80% of all ebooks. So they've continued to grow. And that's what I was worried about when I started Bookshop. When I first kind of started knocking on doors and telling people like, hey, we've got to arm these small local bookstores with some platform that allows them to compete with Amazon. And the reason I thought it was possible, and most people didn't, most people thought that it was either going to fail or be a very small business. And it was really hard for me to raise money. But I knew that people pay for local produce, right? They buy from local farms. They go to restaurants that are farm to table. They pay more for energy that is primarily based on renewable sources. Now, not most people, but enough people. Like if 5% of people are willing to pay more for organic produce, I think it's more than 5%, who, are interested in shopping locally, are what you call like socially conscious consumers who believe that essentially the choices we make as consumers are shaping the world that we live in. And so we're kind of voting with our money on like what we want our existence to be like and who we want to have in power and who we want to have thrive and what kind of structure we want in our communities. And so when we vote for getting everything delivered to our homes from Amazon or other huge retailers, then we're kind of voting for like having no downtown, having like fewer community spaces, rubbing shoulders with our neighbors less often. And we know that doesn't end with a lot of human happiness, right? Human happiness has come from like people having meaning and community and connections to other people. So I knew that there was a way in, and I knew it was going to be more successful than other people thought. But I also knew that like the bookstores couldn't do it themselves because there's 2,500 of them now in our network. Not all of them are tech savvy. A lot of them don't really like technology or feel threatened by it. So I knew that we needed to have a platform that did it for them to whatever extent we could to make it as easy as possible. So that was kind of my rubric, was like, it has to be super easy for the bookstores. It also has to be super easy for the consumers to choose to support their bookstores instead of, just going to Amazon. But, and so the silver lining is that from the past 15 years, from like 19, or from 2005 to 2020, half of the bookstores in this country went out of business. And since we launched, e-commerce revenue for bookstores has increased over 600%. And more bookstores have opened every single year than closed for the first time for the past 5 years, every single year that we've been in existence. So it's like, not only are we much more successful than even I put in our original investor deck, but we're turning the tide. We're changing these trends that people thought were inevitable. Like, of course, all the bookstores are going to close. It turns out it's not true.
Cool. And you also said, which I think is interesting and be curious to hear, like what's behind this statement. But you said, Amazon may at some point get up to 85% of online shoppers, but if Bookshop can kind of capture 5% of them, that could be meaningful. And so why that number? Kind of why have you kind of thought about it that way? Because there is, I assume, like a kind of a tipping point or a level of scale that's really important when you think about kind of what you're doing. So,
yeah, well, I mean, honestly, my numbers keep getting bigger. Like the more I succeed, the more I'm like, that's not enough. That's not enough. Like, it's never enough. Right now, I'm looking for 5%. If I hit 5%, I am sure that I will look for more than 5%. But the bookstores, like we have 2,500 bookstores now. So, we have raised $42 million for them, but you split $42 million, 25 through 2,500 bookstores, it doesn't end up being like life-changing money. It pays their rent for a few months a year. It pays their bills, but we want something that transforms the industry. And to transform the industry, I think we do have to be about 5 times the size as we are now. The reason I'm setting that goal is because I understand how much that means for like a median payout for the stores and what it would mean for them to be like, oh, this is so much more sustainable. Like, I can have a full-time staff member for an entire year from this money that I'm getting from bookshop.org. And like, that's kind of a tipping point where the whole thing becomes easier to run that business. So that's what I'm going for now.
Great. So it's interesting. So you think about it, and I like how that's framed. So you're kind of like, if we can enable an FTE for each independent bookstore, like that's a big win when you think about how they operate and sustain and being sustainable. So it's like kind of how you think about it.
Yeah, either an FTE or maybe health insurance or whatever it is that they can't quite do right now. A lot of these stores are very small. We benefit the smaller stores greater than we do the larger stores. So a large urban store that's doing 5 or 10 million a year, the money that we give them is going to make a lot less of a difference. But it's the stores in small communities that serving like 40,000 people, for whom the money that we're giving them is really the difference between staying in business and calling it a day and shuttering up. And so yeah, we just want to be able to do more. And we're educating the population on the importance of small bookstores and how much good they do for our society and culture and the communities. And so all of that education helps too. Like, in-store sales are up and have been up every year because like we're constantly running publicity and PR and marketing saying like, support local bookstores. And that message resonates. The more it's on the top of mind for people, the better it is for those stores.
Man, this is like such an interesting, and my mind's just going off to a tangent real quick because it's so interesting because like there's so many, I guess, forces coming together in our culture and society, obviously AI being one of the biggest one. I recently read an article about, basically that it was pretty dark, but kind of like the risk of raising the next generation who are not reading as much, and obviously because of a lot of these tools and AI-based tools. And so it's like very interesting what's happening. A lot of forces kind of colliding together. And so I think it's very, I mean, I'm someone who's very, I'm definitely like a techno optimist, and it's not about the technology, it's about how you apply that technology. And by the way, everyone listening or watching, I did not prompt Andy to say what he said at the beginning of the conversation. It was completely natural, which is the whole point of Going Direct, which is I believe that over the long term, humans desire that connection and that meaning. And this is all about, how do you use technology to bring people closer to the products to buy and the people who make them. And so, anyways, I just wanted to mention that because I think it's a fascinating situation, and I think it's going to be a very dynamic situation. And so I want to get into it because I think the thought that was clearly put into how you've structured everything and is really important. So I really want to dig into this because I think not only for the bookshop story, but kind of the goal of getting other entrepreneurs who are really focused on small business and doing and having similar outcomes as yourself in different industries. I think there's a lot to learn here. So I was really interested the further I dug into it. So you want to get into the weeds a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So one of the things you said, which is just the reality, and I shout at the rooftops, is, if you want to, everything that you said sounds great in theory, but you got to go put those gloves on and compete in the marketplace. And one of the things that you said is, I want to make Bookshop as close to as easy and as cheap as Amazon as I can, obviously from a competition standpoint. So there's 4 different aspects or parties, I would say, kind of that kind of are involved in Bookshop's ecosystem. I'm going to list them out here, and then we're going to go one by one because I really want to break down the nuts and bolts of this, Andy, because I think it's fascinating. So you have the independent bookstores, you have what you call affiliates, which we'll get into, publishers, and then obviously consumers. And so just for everyone there who's not been to bookshop.org, you just go there and it feels like a very similar, it's an e-commerce experience where you can buy books at first glance. So you've described it though as part e-commerce platform, part affiliate hub. So let's first go to independent bookstores and how they work with bookshop.org so people understand.
Yeah. Well, we looked at all the problems that stores have had with e-commerce. And we looked also at some early examples of platforms that tried and failed to source books from independent bookstores. And it's very tricky to have them fulfill their own orders, or to ask them to maintain their own websites, or even do things like consistent digital marketing. Like you're sometimes talking about like an elderly couple in Wyoming that are running this bookstore. Like it's going to be a very varied landscape. So my theory was like, let's just do everything for them. Let's make sure that like we can do everything from handle their warehouse, shipping, to paying their sales tax, to handling their customer service when books are lost in the mail. And by doing it that way, we made it so that to sign up was as easy as like creating a Facebook page for your business. And then you're done. And you can actually walk away from that page and then come back, and in 2 years, we have $25,000 for you. And that has happened. Like there have been stores that in January of 2020 signed up, and then they forgot, or their employee that signed up left. And eventually I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, you've got like 25 grand in your account. Do you want it? And then inevitably they're like, oh my God, this is life changing. Like we had like water damage from their ceiling, and now we're safe, thank God. So it's like making it super easy meant doing it all for them. And so they're technically affiliates too. Everybody is just an affiliate. We are the seller of record. And by making us the seller of record, like we can work with wholesalers to make sure that we've got as many books as Amazon has. So you don't have to worry about what the store has in their inventory. A 1,200 square foot store is never going to be able to compete with Amazon on like the books they have available. So we make the relationships with wholesalers. We send the books. We pay the sales tax. You hit sales tax thresholds in 48 states. Most bookstores, like they don't have time to file sales tax in all those states. We do it for them. And then we pay them basically all the profit we possibly can for each one of those sales at the end of the day, which ends up being about 30% of the cover price. That's after our discounts and after all of our expenses. And that really leaves no margin for us on those sales, but it means that the bookstore makes 30%, whereas if they sold something where if they ordered it from the publisher and they sold it to their customer directly, they might make like 40 to 45%. So they do make a little less, but they do no work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want one thing I want to dive in on there because it's important, just so it's a little bit clear is I have here. So basically what you were just explaining is the independent bookstores, they can put up their own digital storefront and anyone can go on and choose their local bookstore and look at that. But what they do is they can curate their own book list from more than 4 million titles or so. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So that's I just wanted to make sure that was clear, which is a really big deal when it comes to warehousing, fulfillment, and everything that you just said. So, okay. So the independent bookstores, you go to them and you say, hey, you can set up a digital storefront just like a Facebook page. You can create your own curated lists, and that's all you do. And then you start receiving checks when people start buying books through your digital storefront or in other ways, which we'll talk about.
And they can do more, of course. They can have an email marketing program where they're sending best books of the week to all their customers. They can post on social media. Everybody, anytime that somebody comes in through one of their links, that customer becomes permanently cookied to their store. So if I'm a bookstore in Montana and I do an email promotion or a social media contest or something like that, and I get 1,000 people to click on the links and go to bookshop.org, then we put a cookie on those customers' browsers. And if they come back in 9 months or even in 2 years, they will still be affiliated with that store, and that store will still get those purchases or the revenue from those purchases. So there's a lot that a store can do. We have stores that have made over $1 million without ever having to touch a book. They don't actually have to get the book from the publisher, unpack the boxes, put them on their shelves, pack them in envelopes, bring them to the post office. They don't have to do any of that stuff. So the stores that are really clever about it will do a huge promotion for a very popular book, and all of their job is just the digital marketing. That's all they have to do, because then they just get the money without any of the headache. And so they can do that with very minimal staff and very minimal effort. Whereas before, if they were going to do a promotion and sell 10,000 copies of a book, they'd have to have a credit line with the publisher, order 10,000 copies. They'd have to have a place to put those 10,000 copies. And then they'd have to have a small army of part-time staffers package all those, put mailing labels on them. It would just be completely unfeasible, but this allows them to have a lot more flexibility in what they do. And really their job is to get the customer, which is kind of insensitive way to say their job is to build community and to form relationships with the people in their community and the readers in their community, which is what they're good at.
Sure. Well, I think there's an element here, right? Which is, I think, where we're going to get the more industries where we just abundance of choice. I think this really also comes down to kind of culture and taste and curation, right?
Absolutely.
So just to be clear, I thought when you use the term affiliate. So basically, if any of your independent bookstores that are kind of on your, that are affiliated with your site. So if I'm an independent bookstore and I'm sending out any email marketing campaigns or anything, I don't have to tell anyone that receives a link from me or finds your website through a campaign of mine, they have to select me as the beneficiary or anything. It just is all automated and you have attribution on all the links.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then customers can also just find you and choose you from the store. So if they go straight to our bookshop.org homepage, we have a choose a bookstore page, and they can find you on a map, or they can find you by typing in your zip code or your name and affiliate with you that way. So we get both avenues. And we also have a very robust affiliate program for media companies and influencers and that kind of thing, book clubs, because in 2018, when I first started looking at all of this, I was like, God, everybody is linking to Amazon on the internet. And the reason is because they're getting an affiliate kickback of 4.5%. And that means that if I'm a blog that covers books, or if I'm the New York Times, or if I'm Reese Witherspoon's book club, I'm going to use Amazon's links because people can always find the book. It's always going to be in stock. and I'm going to get a kickback of 4.5%. And the more media companies rely on that affiliate revenue, the more that becomes pervasive, and then ended up that like the entire internet was a customer acquisition funnel for Amazon because of that affiliate plan. So I knew that we needed an affiliate marketing program that would benefit independent bookstores. And now you see everywhere that you see book coverage, you see a bookshop.org link next to an Amazon link, whether it's like Elle Magazine or Vanity Fair or BuzzFeed or The Atlantic or Time Magazine. We're always side by side. And that has really been huge.
Okay, so when we think, so this is like the second point. So when we think about kind of affiliate, kind of like this, like the whole thing's an affiliate program. Essentially, you said obviously there's the affiliate side on the book club. I'm sorry, from the independent bookstore marketing campaigns, and then there's obviously creators and bloggers and everyone, as you just mentioned, that can have their affiliate link. But I wanted to learn a little bit more about the media properties, which you just discussed, and publishers. So, like, do you think of media properties like the New York Times and the ones you just mentioned the same as actually the book publishers as it relates to affiliates, or no?
Well, the book publishers can be and often are affiliates as well.
Okay.
There's sometimes the more generous book publishers will donate their affiliate earnings to the stores, but sometimes they keep them. For us, the important thing is that they're pointing people to our platform. So everybody gets a kickback. And the way that you can think of it is like even individuals, like we have people who are like Instagram chefs, and they create affiliate accounts and they curate a page that is like their favorite cookbooks. And that's fine. And we'll give them 10% of every sale because they're spreading the word and they're getting it out there. And so if you think about it as like, okay, well, we're kind of sharing the profit with the entire community. And we're more generous than Amazon. We give 10% affiliate payments, which is more than twice what Amazon gives for a normal affiliate. And then an affiliate agrees to not link to Amazon at all and only use us, we give 15%. So that's 3 times what Amazon gives them. And we're just kind of being like, instead of a winner take all kind of model, we're like a winner shares all model. Like we all share in it. If you're an author, like we have an author from Appalachia, and he created this incredible page of like authors and the literary culture from the Appalachian Mountains, and with his books and all these other books, and that richness, like that gives value to our site. People can discover that on our site, and it creates this kind of community, and yeah, he deserves to be rewarded. So like if he sells one of those books that even he hasn't written, then he can get that 15%. If he sells one of his own books, he gets the, what he would normally earn for selling a book and an affiliate commission. So by doing that this way and being super generous with affiliate commissions, we are able to kind of go against the tide and create an environment where authors, publishers, media properties that write about books, book bloggers, influencers on Instagram, TikTok, etc., they all can participate and they all can sell books, and it's all benefiting the entire community instead of eroding the community, which is what happens when all the sales go to Amazon.
So much to talk about. How many affiliates do you have, approximately?
Well, in terms of people that have signed up, probably about 90,000. In terms of affiliates that sell a lot of books, about 7,000.
Okay, and then the last kind of group of people that interact with the bookshop site and platform are consumers, and obviously that's just they purchase books. It's just gone as an e-commerce experience. You purchase books just like you would in any other e-commerce experience, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So how should we think about your relationship with the actual book publishers? And then you use the term wholesaler. So most folks in this that's listening probably don't have much experience in the book publishing industry. So can you just talk about how that even works? The actual publishers of the books, and then the wholesalers that then handle the sales and stuff. So
the key to most D2C businesses is you need a partner that can ship directly to a consumer, and you handle huge volumes. So most publishers can't do that. There are a few that can, like Penguin Random House is extremely efficient at sending a book directly to a customer. But the reason that we have wholesalers is because we have thousands of publishers in this country. And the wholesaler takes the books from all those different publishers and puts them in one warehouse. And if they're good at direct-to-consumer shipping, then basically we sell any book. We send that order to the wholesaler. They make a small markup on every book, and then they charge like a picking and packing fee. And that's how they make their money. And then they ship that book directly to the customer. And so the wholesalers are a really important part. The model wouldn't work without like these centralized wholesalers that carry most books. And as we look, like we've been looking at, like, can we create toyshop.org to support toy stores? Can we create bikeshop.org? And one of the key pieces that's missing in a lot of industries is that existence of like a central wholesaler that has a wide range of products.
So how many wholesalers do you work with then?
Right now we work with 2, and we're about to onboard a 3rd. And we might onboard directly with some publishers as well, so we can send them direct orders as we grow.
And so you mentioned something about as you were looking at the space, and you said you started in 2020, is that right?
That's when we launched in January 2020.
Oh, nice. Right before, oh no, that's right before COVID.
It was extremely fortuitously timed. Yeah. And actually what we launched with had a lot of bugs and problems. And so we spent 2 months fixing stuff. And really, I would say we could have only handled the volume that we started getting at around in March, late March of 2020. We could have only handled it like that week. Like really, it was like the timing was insane because we went from selling $50,000 worth of books in the entire month of February to selling $50,000 worth of books in a single day in March. And then the next day we sold $150,000 worth of books.
Wow.
And by July, we were selling $7 million worth of books a month. So that kind of incredible boom happened because we were there for the stores during COVID, and we onboarded 1,200 stores in the course of about 6 weeks.
Dude, it's almost like out of a movie. That's like divine intervention or something, you know?
It was insane. Yeah. We didn't sleep.
So from the publisher standpoint, whether it's, let's take the value side out of it and actually the meaning for what you're doing just for a second, just from a pure, I guess, economic standpoint. I mean, they don't really care whether it's Bookshop or Amazon or wherever. They're just looking to sell books, correct?
I mean, when I'm disappointed in a publisher, that's true. Sure. But I do think that publishers should understand that the ecosystem really matters. Yeah. I would say there is not a single publisher in this entire country who has better terms with Amazon now than they did 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, they had better terms 5 years before that. In other words, Amazon's terms get worse over time. The more power they get, the more squeezed the publishers are. They need competition. They cannot afford to live in a world where Amazon is their only sales channel. And not only that, but supporting the independent bookstores is incredibly essential because you're talking about like 3,000 small towns all over the country, and each one of them has an independent bookstore that is fighting for the importance of books in that community. They're saying like books are important. You got to read. They're partnering with schools. They're partnering with businesses. They're making kids excited about books. Like the industry needs those advocates on the ground. If those advocates go away, if the publishers allow that bookstores to just erode and disappear, that erosion is like topsoil eroding. Like you cannot grow what they want to grow if that topsoil goes away. If ends up the Amazon sells 80-90% of the books, and then for them it's just one other category, and they don't care that much about it, and they're making more money on AWS, that's going to kill publishers. Publishers are not going to thrive in that future. So I do think that there are publishers who look at quarterly profit goals, and that's the only thing that matters to them. And for those publishers, like working with us is like we're just another retailer. But there are, thank God, enough publishers that feel like, oh, what you guys are doing is important, and we want to make sure to support you. That I think that we have a slightly special relationship compared to all the other big retailers.
You know, it's interesting. So my wife's French. I spent a fair amount of time over in France, and so it's just interesting getting different perspectives from different cultures. And I've noticed something here culturally, not only the role of independent bookstores, there's bookstores everywhere, which is like, especially in Paris, which is very cool to see. But it's interesting. There's even small things like gifts for holidays and birthdays and other celebrations. Very oftentimes people gift books.
Yeah. And you know what else in France? Like, for better or worse, they have price controls. So they don't allow Amazon to discount, or anybody to discount a book more than 10%, because Amazon discounts books as a loss leader. So if a book is super popular and it's like a bestseller and it just came out last month, Amazon will probably have it for 50% off. They're not making any money off of that book because they're probably paying the publisher somewhere around 45%, and then they have their own costs. So they're losing money on every sale. Why are they choosing to do that? Because they want to become the dominant retailer, and they want to consolidate that power and engage in monopolistic behavior. And in France, they're like, no, that's not going to go. You can't discount a book more than 10% because that keeps the playing field even. And as a result, Amazon is only a very, very small part of their market, maybe 10 or 15%, whereas here it's 60% because we have no such controls. Now, I don't know if I'm not super excited about the government getting into like regulating commerce in the market, but it does protect the small businesses from predatory practices like that in France, and it has helped a lot.
I tend to agree. I'm definitely much more I'm definitely like much more of a free market advocate and less government. I guess I would say an intervention is better. That's just my own kind of like perspective. But it's interesting. I followed several of the Amazon cases over the past few years, and kind of what you're getting at, which was kind of using the books as the loss leader or other products as the loss leader. It's like, once you get them into the ecosystem, they just want that Prime subscription. And then, basically what you see happen, I've seen this happen with a few companies in my portfolio where it's like, and some of them do sell on Amazon, and it's pretty remarkable. It's just so obvious at this point where it's like, if you don't advertise on Amazon, if you don't show up as that, as a sponsored, top 3, 4, 5 listing when someone's searching for you, you don't have a chance.
Yeah.
And it's anyways, well, we can go on and on about that. So I want to get into the economics because this is also important for me to drill into. So I want to walk through each one. If we go one by one, then I'll let you, I just want to kind of frame it just so folks have it and then turn it over to you.
Sure.
So first, before I have the 3 different ways that kind of the sales get distributed. But the first thing you said, and you mentioned it earlier, is you have a 30% margin on every book that you sell. So can you just explain at a high level what you mean by that, just so folks understand?
Yeah. Well, these are all rough numbers.
Yeah,
I'm actually
course.
I can't even disclose exactly what my terms are with everybody, but roughly the publisher gets half of the price of a book. In the case of an ebook, they get 70%, but in the case of a physical book, the publisher gets about half. And then you pay the wholesaler their fee, which might be like 5 to 8%. And then we have a discount because we can't not discount books. If people see a book as full price, we'll lose about a third of our customers. Like if you see that it's discounted, it might be slightly more discounted on Amazon, but you still feel like, okay, I'm getting an okay deal. So we have a discount on top of that. And then we pay for credit card processing fees, pick and pack, which, can be like 50 cents to put a book in an envelope and all that. And at the end of the day, when you take out all those costs, you have 30% left.
Okay. So if you sell a book for $10, there's $3 left.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's the margin. Now, if a bookstore sells that book, we give that entire margin to them. So we don't make money. In fact, we lose money because we have all of our overhead costs that isn't covered by that. And about half of our sales are bookstores selling books directly with their links, et cetera. So if a bookstore brings in a customer, sells that book, they get the full profit. And that has been like extremely beneficial and meaningful to them. Now, we also sell books through like affiliates like New York Times. If somebody buys something from the New York Times and New York Times is getting 10% of that 30%, then we take basically they're getting third of the profit is going to New York Times, which is 10% of the cover price, which is 1/3 of the 30% margin. So 1/3 of the profit goes to the New York Times, 1/3 of the profit goes to the bookstores because we have a profit sharing pool. and we make sure that every single sale the bookstores benefit from, no matter where it came from. So in that case, we're getting 10% of the book to support bookshop.org and keep us going. So the profit is basically split in thirds, which means that everybody gets 10% of the cover price with an normal affiliate sale. I know it gets kind of complicated. And then you have cases where somebody just types in bookshop.org and buys a book, or they're coming to us through Google Shopping or another channel like that. In those cases, that's a direct sale. We put a third of the profit into the bookseller profit pool, and then we keep the other 2/3 of the profit. And that's how we pay our staff and our bills. Okay, and in general, our expenses are 12.5% of our revenue, and we keep it no greater than that. So we try to stay very, very lean so we can still afford to give the maximum amount back to bookstores.
Okay, just to summarize it. So the first one, which is if someone comes through a link from an independent bookstore or chooses the bookstore when they're checking out,
yeah,
or they go through the digital storefront, then the entire 30% profit goes to that bookstore.
Yes.
The second one, which is if someone like New York Times and their bestseller lists, as someone comes through that affiliate link, 10% goes to the New York Times, 10% goes to bookshop.org, and then 10% goes to basically this revenue share pool that you distribute back out to the independent bookstores.
That's right.
And then if someone comes in, so like I actually did this earlier today. I came directly onto bookshop.org and bought a book to go through the experience. In that case, 20% of the 20 of the 30% goes to bookshop and 10% goes into the revenue share pool.
That's right.
Okay, cool. So for the independent bookstores, do they pay any type of fee or anything to maintain the digital storefront at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
We charge nothing. And when they sell an ebook, like we just launched this ebook platform to compete with the Kindle, and I'm very excited about that. And I think we have a lot of room to grow on that. But in those cases, like we invested millions of dollars building this digital infrastructure, and if they sell an ebook, they don't pay any kind of cost at all for that infrastructure. So we built these apps, we built a whole platform. They sell an ebook. The money is split between them and the publisher. We don't take any cut whatsoever, not even like a payment processing fee. So that really is designed like basically we're just trying to make sure that our staff is fed and clothed. Like in a way, sometimes it seems kind of crazy how much we give. We'd like to say that we give 80% of our profit margin to bookstores, but in fact, most years it is more than that. But that's what it's like. You know, we're a mission-based business, and we're really trying to walk the walk. And as a result, 90% of the bookstores in this country are participating. Nobody ever thought we would get to 90%. Even the Bookseller Association told me we would never get beyond 50% because independent booksellers are so like stubborn and hard-headed and different. You know, they're just never going to like all join something. But in this case, we've been true to our mission, and so they've joined.
And so this is like an interesting question for me. How big is the bookshop team?
We have 47 employees right now.
Okay, so one of the things that people always talk about margin's just a way to reinvest into your business to continue to achieve the mission that you're on. So like, how do you balance that? Because that's a very tight margin. I'm sure everyone on the team, they also want to grow in their careers and where they're going. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, it is tricky. And if you talk to my chief marketing officer, who I just tried to hit me up with a new expense yesterday, and I had to say no. Some people on my staff might think, yeah, we should invest more in the business. But as long as we're growing, I mean, this year we're growing like over 50% year over year. So as long as we're growing and we're making the right choices, like I feel good about being lean. I think a lot of times when people take VC money and they've got tens of millions of dollars hanging around, they blow it. They're not disciplined. It's not a great outcome. It creates a less efficient business, and it's hard to catch. For a unicorn, you can have your revenue catch up to that and end up being more than enough to cover it. But most of the time, that never happens. Whereas we're like disciplined and careful with our money, and we do spend money, on digital marketing, et cetera. But we spend about 2% of our revenue now on digital marketing. Whereas if you look at most direct-to-consumer companies like Casper Mattresses or Warby Parker or Bombas or whatever, they're spending 15 to 30% of their revenue on digital marketing. So we spend some money, but we are very, very careful with it. Could we be bigger if we spent more of our money on growth? Probably, but I think that we wouldn't be giving nearly as much to bookstores, and so that's the balance.
Yeah, and I tell founders all the time, you hit on something really important, which is, and you just learn this through life experience and age and going through how the whole world works, which is how you capitalize. If you're starting something, how you capitalize it, like basically drives a lot of your decision making.
Yeah,
what you're getting at, and I always say this: it's like it can very quickly go off the rails, right? As far as like intentionality, values, why you're starting what you're starting, if it's not capitalized the right way.
Yeah.
So how much? And so I don't know if this is public or whatever you're comfortable to share, but so how much? I don't know if you've shared how much the company has raised or approximately.
Initially, we raised $750,000, which is not a lot of money to create an e-commerce site that's taking on Amazon.
I love that.
And then to build the ebook platform, we raised another $2.3 million in 2022.
All right, so let's talk about the ebook platform, because I wasn't able to find much information on it, because the last kind of some of the pieces that I dug through were a little bit older. So kind of where does that program stand, and how? And you said you were really excited about it, so I want to hear about that.
Yeah, well, we launched it this year. It's already 5% of our sales. I think it will be more. We're launching it in the UK now, and what we're grappling with, speaking of like capitalization, we're grappling with like, do we create a Kindle type e-ink device, which would really be the game changer? Like try to create a Kindle killer and put it out there. There are a lot of people who are discouraged with Amazon right now for other reasons, like there's a political situation where Amazon is very close to the Trump administration. They're paying for the Trump's ballroom. There are a lot of people who read on the Kindle that don't want to pay for Trump's ballroom. And if I say to them, hey, make the switch, like we have something that's just like a Kindle, it's actually better because it's the newest technology, like cut your ties, buy your ebooks from bookshop.org. I think it would resonate and be quite huge. So, because we're small and we're capital constrained, we've been fixing bugs. We've been creating a better experience. Like also Kindle has a huge lead on us. They've been around for 20 years. And so we are only at the point right about now where I think our app is pretty much as good as the Kindle. So it took us about 9 months of improving it to get there. But now that we are as good as the Kindle, and especially if we decide to do an e-ink device, I think we can really take them on and start breaking open the ebook market. And one of the reasons is Amazon's not faster with ebooks. You get them instantaneously either way. And they're not cheaper because ebook prices are set by the publishers. So they're the same price and they are exactly as convenient. So the two competitive advantages that Amazon has had over us do not exist in the ebook space.
So it's interesting just starting with all this going direct stuff. I'm going to predominantly be working through Substack. It's such a better experience for what I'm trying to do and for creating a community. And so obviously Substack has shown the growth of Substack around independent media and independent authors. So do you have kind of any plans, or do you do much with just independent or first-time authors, or people just have something to say? That obviously Amazon has their own self-publishing platform, but it's really hard to get the word out or for people to even notice that this new book or this new ebook exists.
Yeah, I think that those are all areas for growth for us in the next few years. So we don't have a self-publishing platform yet, but we are onboarding Draft to Digital soon, within the next few months, and they are the largest self-publishing platform. So we will have a ton of self-published authors at that point. Substack has been a great source of revenue growth for us. And I want people who are going to monetize their Substacks just to be thinking like, oh, if I if I read about a book, I should link to Bookshop. And that's part of my monetization of my Substack. Like we have not a few, but like maybe 20 or 30 Substackers who regularly link to us and make significant revenue. I want that to be like every Substacker that writes about books should be linking to Bookshop. It's just to be part of the ecosystem. So we're going to do more like to invest in Substack and help foster that platform, because it is becoming this great home to writers and creatives. And, they just received this big investment. So I think that they're going to keep growing. So we definitely want to be there.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, as someone who's been doing this for a short amount of time, I'm not a big social media person. I don't really consume much. And it's funny when I'm playing around and working on any of these other platforms, other than consuming information, usually for work-related items, I just had like this natural aversion to it. And Substack's the only one that like, I actually get like, it makes me happy to like log in and to like comment or to see people commenting and it's just very thoughtful. And I don't know, just feels right to me.
Yeah, I hope that they maintain that atmosphere for sure.
I know. It's going to be interesting. Okay, another quote I wanted to better understand, because that it was a very poignant piece. Here we go. So you were talking about publications like the New York Times, and you said you need publications like the Times to be writing about books for a healthy book culture, and they need ways to pay for that journalism. So when you think about the book clubs and these media publishers, like how important is that to the industry?
I think it's hugely important. And I think it has been fumbled in the past by publishers because their marketing revenue does not always support these outlets. Like the Associated Press used to have great book reviews. They just cut it like a year ago. They were like, okay, we're not going to do book reviews anymore. Well, if publishers were advertising in newspapers, then they wouldn't cut that coverage. There used to be book sections in all these major newspapers. Now there's only book sections in maybe 5 or 6 important newspapers. I do think that there's a short-sighted problem with publishers where they put most of their ad dollars into Google and Facebook and Amazon. And when I say most, I mean like they're putting 98% of their ad dollars in those. And you need other outlets to reach people. Like you need BuzzFeed, thankfully still covers books, but they're having a hard time. Like a lot of these publications are having a hard time. And affiliate links are a way for them to be supported. And thankfully, like one of the things I love about humanity and that gives me hope and makes me more of a techno-optimist, even though like there's a lot of scary things on the horizon right now, is it like people evolve and create new things. When something dies out or a parking lot is paved over, sprouts start coming up. It starts cracking. And I think Substack is like that cracking. Like BuzzFeed is having a hard time. They used to have a great book section. New York Times is doing okay, but most newspaper and news websites are not doing okay. A lot of culture websites are doing poorly. But look at what's happening. Substack is coming up, and it's empowering individual creators, and it's growing really fast. And we're seeing like viral content happen on platforms that didn't even exist 5 years ago, even as large platforms like X, Facebook are restricting outbound links. So you can't go viral. You can't spread the way word of mouth the way you used to be able to spread. And that would be like a horrific future of like walled gardens and consolidated media. And every time that starts to happen, then suddenly like, oh, wait, here's Substack coming along. And new platforms come along and human creativity continues to flourish. And there is still an open internet in some sense. And so I'm really happy to see that. But to get to your question, like if most cultural life happens online now, and so you need your message in that conversation. If you're out of that conversation, whatever you're trying to do is going to recede culturally, and it's just going to disappear. It's going to become a niche thing. And the book publishing industry really needs to understand that better. And by supporting an affiliate network of like, we can support you if you're a book blogger or a TikTok book talker, or you're the New York Times or Time Magazine or Rolling Stone. Like, and if you cover books, we're going to pay you every time that somebody buys a book because of your coverage, then we're giving positive reinforcement and saying, yeah, continue to invest in this. And then that keeps you part of the discourse. And if you're part of the online discourse, then your industry is going to be healthier. You're not going to disappear or fade away. And that's like, we're trying to do that the best we can with this affiliate program. But I wish more people would understand that and not just worry about like, what's the exact ROAS of this ad dollar that I spend on Amazon marketing services versus the ROAS if I spend it on like a publication that writes about books, because there's more than just like tracking how a link performed. There's like a whole ecosystem and attention economy that you need to support around your industry.
You know, I talk about this a lot, which is, you know, the reality, I think what you're getting at is you mentioned cracks starting to form. I see it. I actually see it in every industry, maybe because I'm kind of deep in that kind of early stage innovation economy, but it's from everything, right? It's if you go down the list, these are big ticket items, you never need small items, but if you go down the list of cost of college tuition, cost of housing, cost of healthcare premiums, right? And you just look over the past 15 to 20 years and just the constant rise, not only the rise in it, the rise of the prices, inflation adjusted, the quality of the products suck.
Yeah.
Like my mom recently moved into like an active senior community. I don't even remember the name of the builders, one of the big home builders. And I'm like, I walked into the house and for the price, I'm like, this is crap.
Yeah.
This is just crap. And so this is just what happens in history, right? Systems become more centralized and more decentralized. They become sclerotic, which is what's happening. And then, like you said, these little sprouts pop up. And I think Bookshop is, you know, they use the term kind of in the investment community as a business in a box. We're building kind of this digital backbone and all the non-sexy things that really enable kind of small business and independent entities to do whatever it is that they should be spending their time. So in the context of, you spoke about it in bookstores, but it can be restaurants, it could be anything. I think there's something very powerful to that. And I mean, obviously I'm making my bet that's where the future is, and that's the future I want to live in. So
yeah, absolutely. It's like optimized for human happiness. Like, why are we optimizing for anything else? Like, we are humans. Like, I don't understand this maniacal drive to build things that like replace human creativity. Like, isn't that what makes people happy? Like, why? Like, it's been said before, but like, why aren't we building things that are going to like do the dishes? Maybe they'll get to that, but they start with like, let's build things that will replace reading and writing and creating art and filmmaking and all this stuff. And whatever you're like, it's obviously a technical marvel. It's amazing what they've been able to do. But like, what future is that compared to like, why aren't we enabling that for people by getting rid of all of the hassles? And that's where I would love to see all of this technological innovation go for. Like, why aren't we lowering prices on health insurance? Or, why aren't we doing like using AI to cure cancer, et cetera? Like, hopefully those things are coming. But right now, it just seems very perverse that we're like, okay, not only is AI going to try to destroy all the jobs of the creative class and like new college graduates, et cetera, but all that money is going to flow towards the people who are already the most rich and powerful people in the world. Mm-hmm. So we're taking away all these things that make human beings happy, and that includes downtowns and small businesses and places where people meet and congregate, and their meaningful jobs, which is also what makes people happy, is feeling like they have a meaningful job that actually impacts people in a positive way. We're taking all that away, and for what exactly? Like, for what? We just need to like seriously rethink what this technology is enabling and what kind of future we want it to create. And right now it's like the mad gold rush phase, but of course we know that there's going to be a explosion or collapse of some kind. And then hopefully those sprouts coming through the cracks will be there when the crash, after the crash happens. And that will help create like a better environment than what we're seeing being built right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, oh man, this is a deep topic, and I think I go back to the same piece, which is the human connection piece, which is it's how you apply the technology. And it's interesting what you just described. I mean, it's the same with any market, and I think this is what's the trouble that if you don't have any checks and balances, right? Which is typically what ends up happening is any market that there is, the people that are the early adopters developing the technology or the things when things are they're there for the creative pursuit, and they're there to like create something that's never existed before. Where the real challenge comes in, which is what we've seen. Most of these companies will get washed out, which is good in the AI world, which is you just have all these people running around trying to like kind of what I call like the people just piling in, creating all these like worthless applications and wrappers for what we don't know. But this is what happens in every market. You get people piling in just because there's a financial opportunity, then markets starting to get formed, then become financialized. It's the same thing with big tech, right? If you asked any of the founders when they started, of the Mag 7, they started their companies, they weren't even thinking it would turn into what it was.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get the managerial class, you get Wall Street, you get all these things. And so that's why for me, Andy, and why I was excited about this conversation, it's like, you have to reorient how like we build these systems and decentralize them inherently. And you can't decentralize them inherently unless everything from top to bottom is designed with intentionality in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had this quote where, and you mentioned this before, I'm interested in this, where Bookshop's a model for how small local businesses can compete with some global online behemoths. And you made this comment where in some of these other industries you were thinking about, they don't have some of the functions like the wholesalers to compete. But have you thought about what other industries you could really apply this type of thinking to?
I think about it all the time. I think about how, I think Bookshop is a rare example of small businesses competing on the same turf as giant digital monopolists and winning. And for them, winning is not crushing Amazon. For them, winning is taking a piece, because that piece can feed their entire community. And I want to see that happen more. During the pandemic, would go to my local toy store in Greenpoint, and all the schools were closed. But every time there was a birthday party for one of my kids' friends, I would run into all of these other parents at the toy store, just shopping the aisles. And these kind of moments are really important for our community. And then I think about like what Amazon has done to toys. And there's like, even Toys R Us is gone. Like there's just nothing really supporting them. Those toy stores are having a really hard time. But the Amazon shopping experience isn't good because you need curation too. Like if it's a bunch of cheap knockoff toys and people gaming the Amazon system and third-party sellers, et cetera, it's hard to get, as a parent, to like get good quality toys and to know like what is actually the coolest new thing. You want the curators that like a great toy store would give you. So how do we empower those curators and those community hubs like toy stores, even beauty supply stores, even hardware stores, home goods stores, all these stores that are fun places to go in and browse? They make your downtown more vibrant and exciting. They increase your housing values that's what the argument you need. How do we make sure that they can survive an era of consolidation and drop shipping and that kind of isolation that happens as an inadvertent result from that? And I think taking Bookshop's model of having this umbrella marketplace that represents all of them and gives them all leverage and all power and puts them on a similar playing field as the Walmarts, Targets, and Amazons of the world would be incredible. And it's definitely where I want to take this business and this platform, like in the next 5 or 6 years. But it's not going to be in the next 3 years. Like Amazon, we started with books. We're now on like in the middle of year 6, and we're just beginning to have the platform that we feel like is powerful enough to be able to take it and replicate it for other industries. But it's definitely my goal.
Great. All right, you ready for a little rapid fire and then we'll wrap it
Yes,
up?
sure.
All right. What's one opinion about the publishing industry you have that most people would disagree with you on?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure. What is it? Most people would disagree with me on. Well, I guess I would say that maybe it's that publishers do add value. That editors and publishers do add value. I think that there is a kind of, most people might think like self-publishing is the way to go, that publishing is like a big inefficient behemoth that, gatekeeps and keeps power. And some of that is true. But I also know from being a publisher in a previous life that like the care that editors and art directors and everybody spends on making sure a book is as good as it possibly can be, and the kind of dynamic relationship between a good editor and a good writer in improving that book, that is really valuable. And I think that sometimes people who want to be disruptors or people who are just readers, they don't see that invisible work, and so they don't value it. So in a way, this is in a way, my contrarian take is like a vote for the establishment. I think that publishing is a valuable industry that does add value to the book world and book like creative products. And I don't want to see old school legacy publishing get destroyed. At the same time, I'm quite critical of how they don't innovate and they don't invest in innovation either. So like, I don't think they're perfect, but I do think that they have value.
What's one misconception people have about Amazon's grip on the book world?
I think that the misconception that people have that Amazon tries to foster is that they're really good for authors and they're really good for small businesses. Amazon's always like, we support small businesses, but every third party seller that you talk about, Amazon too, like if they've been doing it for 10 years, they'll be like, oh my God, it's gotten so much worse. And they ban me for no reason and their fees are way, way too high, et cetera. So I think that people believe that there's a kind of populist positive thing to Amazon, and they don't understand how much it is actually like eroding the possible future and like what they really care about. Authors don't benefit much from Amazon. Amazon is really trying to sell as many products as they can. That means they'll take like a book that's selling well and they'll leave it on the top of the bestseller list and they'll recommend it to more people, et cetera, et cetera. It becomes harder and harder for somebody to break out because of this self-reinforcing thing of bestsellers are bestsellers because they're bestsellers. So we're going to recommend them more and more and more. So if you're not a bestseller and nobody's ever heard of you, it is very rare that you can get to the top. But because every once in a while somebody gets to the top, everybody believes it's possible in the same way like the lottery works. But a more democratic system would be much better. And that's what, bookstores provide, for example.
That's a good lead in the next question. What's something only bookstores can do better than any algorithm?
Well, absolutely understand you as a person, what you need, what you're looking for, and then give like their perfect recommendation. And that's what the booksellers live for. Like booksellers are people who generally books have made a profound difference on their lives. They've like been revelatory. They've changed their lives. And what that bookseller wants to do is change your life with a book too. And that's something no algorithm will understand. And they can learn about you, they can listen, and then they can give you a book that will like change your life. And that's something that only booksellers can do.
What's one trend in publishing you think will surprise people in the next 5 years or so?
Well, I don't know if it'll surprise people, but I think publishers are looking to do more direct sales. They're investing in things like TikTok Shop. I think, unfortunately for me, it's more disintermediation of the small bookstores. They're like publishers' solution to Amazon's dominance has more and more been like, oh, we should sell directly to customers. And ultimately, I don't think that's a good model for them because I think it's important for bookstores to be there, and which I've made clear. But But I do think that that's what we're going to see in the next 5 years is more and more publishers trying to form direct relationships with consumers, and so that they don't have to rely so much on Amazon, but it also means that they'll be undermining the bookstores that are like out there doing their good work for them. So unfortunately.
Last question. Finish the sentence. The future of books is?
I would say the future of the books is still bright. I think that books are an almost magical art form that truly, like through a bunch of symbols on a piece of paper, can create an entire world in your head and reconfigure your brain. So they change the way you think about things forever. And through sustained arguments or things that one thing leads to another in a way that like other forms cannot. Like you can build a sustained argument, or you can understand calculus or whatever it is through a book, or you can create a world and a narrative that profoundly changes your understanding of other people or yourself. And I think that when you have something that's so incredibly useful and powerful to human consciousness, it's not going to go away. So I would say the future is bright and still strong.
Great. One other thing I just want to add as we wrap up, and I totally forgot to cover this, was really important. I want to mention this, which caught my eye, which is one of the biggest things a lot of online retailers and what we call, gatekeepers or middlemen do is they do not share the customer data between the person buying the thing and the person selling the thing. And I just wanted to give a shout out because I did notice that you do share all the customer data with the independent bookstores. So bravo on that. That's like a really big deal that most people don't pay attention to.
Yeah, we would never keep those books. Those customers are supporting the bookstores. They're the bookstores' customers. It kills me. I mean, we're thinking about going all in on TikTok Shop next year, and they don't give you the customers' email addresses. Like they hog them, and so of course does Amazon. And yeah, I don't love it. And so for us, like everything we do, we just try to do like how would you want to be treated? Like what kind of world do we want to live in? That includes a world where like we don't gatekeep, we don't hoard, we don't engage in rent seeking or exploitive behaviors. Like we can all thrive together. That should be the goal. The goal shouldn't be winner take all. It should be let's all thrive. Let's all create a better world. Let's all be happy. And so everything that we're trying to do is that will go down to like sharing customer data or our profit sharing program.
Great. Andy, how can people reach you?
You can just email me at andy@bookshop.org or visit bookshop.org if you're interested in buying a book.
All right, my man. Well, everyone go buy your books from bookshop.org. There's no better representation of going direct than what you're doing, Andy. And I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy man, and I look forward to having another chat sometime soon.
Yeah. And thank you so much for having me.
Cool. Thanks.